Sup! Welcome to Devlog 1 of SQGame. The name does not have any hidden meaning.
With your almost regular hosts, Chmazinka and Execution. Movement is one of the core mechanics of any game. Well, of the games where you can move at least. We decided to keep the movement system of our game clean and simple, without oversaturation of unnecessary mechanics just for the sake of having them. So what exactly do we need? We want the movement to feel responsive and flowy, which means fast acceleration and substantial air control. We also want to add dashes, to bring some more variety to traversing the map, clearing obstacles and evading enemies. Luckily for us, Unreal Engine already has a great and pretty customizable movement system, so all that is left is to build upon it to better suit our needs. First of all, we need to make a character. The character class in Unreal Engine already has a movement component where all the fun is happening. By tweaking some funny numbers here and there, we can make our movement feel closer to what we need. But something doesn't feel quite right. You see, I myself like jumping while running in games. Maybe way too much to be fair. And it does not feel that good right now. This happens because if you press jump while midair, well, the character can't really do anything with that. So if you want to jump consecutively on landing, your timing has to be frame perfect. And we don't want that. So let's talk about input buffering for a second. What is input buffering, you may ask? Well, have you ever noticed that in some games, when you press a button a little bit too early, the game still registers the input sometime later even if the button is not pressed anymore? This is input buffering for you. Basically, it throws the button you have pressed, and if you can't perform the action at the moment, it applies it when you can. Now, let's implement some simple input buffering logic. Since we don't have a lot of actions that can be quote-unquote locked, we can have our buffer only register the jump action. So we just make a boolean variable that stores the fact that the button was pressed. Then we start a timer for the duration of our buffer, and when the timer runs out, we reset our variable. But our character still doesn't know what the variable means, so we need to tell him that when he touches the ground, if the variable is true, that he needs to jump. Much better. Now let's add dashes. There are a lot of different ways to make them, but the most fitting one I found works like this. When the character decides to dash, we store the input vector, which represents desired direction. Then, at fixed intervals for the duration of the dash, we change the velocity of our character to match the direction of the input vector and the speed of our dash. When the time runs out, we also need to reset the velocity. We decided to reset it to 0, so that the dash feels more like a commitment and not just get out of jail free card. But you can also reset it to the character's max speed to make the dashes more fluid.
After all, it's a first-person shooter, and the shooting part is an important one. So, what are we shooting with? There are two main ways games simulate bullets. Hitscan, a virtual ray that instantly hits whatever is directly in its line of sight, and projectile, a physical responsive ordnance which can simulate travel time and gravity. Projectile weapons are commonly used in games with open world and a large map. But considering the fast pace of our game and enclosed spaces, we chose hitscan as primary type of firearm, with projectile system used in a grenade launcher. Now, we have two general types, but it's not how weapons are classified. There's shotgun, SMG, rifle. In real life, the difference between a submachine gun and an assault rifle might be caliber. In games, it usually comes down to damage or fire rate. If it's one parameter that differs, why don't we make that parameter dynamic? We made our weapon stats upgradable, so we can beat the game with any class of weapon. Specifically, there are pistol, a starter semi-auto weapon with modest base stats, assault rifle, burst fire with longer range, submachine gun, fully automatic with higher rate of fire, shotgun that fires multiple pellets in widespread, and Gauss gun, fires powerful shot capable of penetrating an unlimited number of enemies. The Gauss gun works in two steps. First, a line trace is drawn to detect where the shot hits the wall or obstacle. Then, a capsule-shaped collision is generated along that path to check for overlapping enemies and destructible objects, applying damage to each target. Every game has to ensure the shooting is not too easy, so the player actually has to try. It can be done using recoil, spread, and damage fall over distance. SQGame is not a competitive multiplayer game where your recoil control matters. It's a chaotic single-player roguelike. All of the hitscan weapons have accuracy for the first shot and spread multiplier for each consecutive shot, so the longer you fire, the larger the spread will be. Each shot is calculated based on a camera, meaning it originates from the screen center, not the weapon barrel. This was done deliberately, to eliminate all the fun of shooting into the wall and under the window. Additionally, every class has different damage fall-off to encourage the player to get closer to enemies. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you everyone for watching till the end. Subscribe to the channel if you want to watch this game being made. Please leave a like this video, and we'll see you next time.